Ready.
Everybody should mute themselves too, so we can all hear.
And you can also unmute yourself if you have questions while I'm presenting.
Okay. Believe it.
And I see my friend Philip Chiboneka. I think you're still muted.
Yes, I am. I was. How are you?
Oli,
I'm good. I'm good. Doliocha. Yeah. Very nice.
Actually, I think if you can introduce yourself before we start, so people will know who you are when they see your photo.
Okay. So my name is Philip Chiboneka. I own and operate a safari lodge in Queen Elizabeth National Park in Uganda. I am currently in Tampa, where this is my U.S. home, and I'm here to answer any questions about Uganda. I was born and raised in Uganda, moved to the United States way back in 1979. I lived in the Bay Area. I am very familiar with Foster City, worked at Genentech. So I'm glad to be on the meeting. God.
You might hear Philip and I speaking a different language, and that is the Luganda language of central Uganda, which I'm learning. I've been learning for the last 2 years.
What is it called?
It's called Luganda. It's a Bantu
Luganda.
language.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm also learning Hindi, if anyone speaks Hindi here. Namaskar.
Oh, namaskar.
Aapko mere ki bahut acha laga.
Oh, very good.
Thank you. We have quite a thriving Indian community here in Uganda, and they're also involved in the tourism and hotel business. So it's great to learn Hindi.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Achhi baat hai. Great. Any questions before we start? Should I share my screen?
Please do.
Okay. And everyone can hear me okay? Okay, great. Can all of you see this? My name is Chris Austria. My name is Chris Austria. I'm the CEO of Chris Austria Safaris. We are a travel and photography company based in Kampala, Uganda. And we do customized photographic expeditions in Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. Elephants are one of my favorite animals to photograph. And this is one not far from where Philip's Lodge is, Queen Elizabeth National Park. And elephants love to spray themselves with dust. And that's how they keep cool. And it also is a natural repellent. And this elephant crossed our vehicle while we were driving down the road. And being face to face with an elephant while you're photographing them is truly one of the greatest experiences of my life. You can visit my website at chrisaustriasafaris.com. Our mission is to empower communities and conserve wildlife through travel and photography. Aside from photography, I'm also a digital artist. So a lot of what I do is combining different images, such as this red-tailed hawk that I photographed in San Francisco with a male leopard in northeast Uganda. Aside from travel, I'm also a fashion photographer and portrait photographer. I love capturing images of the beautiful people and the beautiful fashion here in Uganda. This is my director, Guayam Bade George. He couldn't be here this evening because it's 11 o'clock and he's busy taking care of his kids, but he wanted to give greetings to all of you there in Foster City. He's from central Uganda. He's also my assistant photographer and our safari driver. He's very passionate about the Pearl of Africa. And you probably recognize this gentleman here. This is Philip. He has a fantastic lodge. It's located right at the Kasenyi Savannah of Queen Elizabeth National Park. And we are enjoying our photography session here when I was there last. You can visit his Facebook page at Kasenyi Safari Camp. He has beautiful tented luxury tents, and they're really unique. They're so comfortable. You can have a breakfast outside, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They have an excellent food. He has a great chef. Philip loves taking us on game drives, and this is really a short distance from the lodge. And within 20 minutes, we saw these beautiful lions here. And Philip actually spotted these cubs that were hiding in the bush here. You can visit KasenyiSafariLodge.com. I'm curious, has anyone been to Africa in the group? Excellent. What are some of the countries you've been to?
I've been to Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania,
Excellent.
Yeah,
Sudan and Eritrea and Ethiopia. Sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been to Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Kenya, Tanzania,
South
Africa.
Ethiopia.
Yeah. So we've done
Mozambique,
3 big photo
yeah.
safaris.
Wow, Martin and Gail, you've been all over the place.
Yes,
So you're also very much into photography?
yes, we are very much.
Okay, that's good to know, because I'm gonna be talking about a few photography techniques, since you guys are into photography. I won't go too deep into it, but we can briefly go about talking about some
Okay.
of my techniques and settings. Uganda is really a mosaic of vibrant cultures and traditions. There are actually 52 ethnic groups with 52 different languages. And I love photographing in the Kalamajong region here of Northeast Uganda. Uganda is organized into different kingdoms. And the kingdom that I live in is the Buganda kingdom, and it's right here in central Uganda. I live right here in Kampala. And our king is Mwenda Mutebi II. He's the king, or the Kabaka, of the Buganda kingdom. Interesting thing about the culture is that the Buganda people are represented by 52 different totems, and the totems are connected to their individual ancestral origins, and most of the totems are animals. My favorite totem is the Impologoma, which is the lion. The clan system is really central to the Buganda culture, and a clan represents a group of people who can trace their lineage to a common ancestor. This is the Invubu clan, or the Hippo clan. Also, there's the crown crane, which is Ngali. The crown crane is also one of the national symbols of Uganda. Many years ago, I was given the name Mayanja. Mayanja means a big ocean. And they gave me this name in central Uganda because I crossed a very large ocean to get to Uganda from the US. So I am Mayanja Chris, and my clan is the Mamba clan, or the Lungfish. I was born in San Francisco, very proud to be born and raised there. I first started working with animals many years ago at Marine World Africa USA, which became Six Flags in Vallejo. I work with the tigers and the lions. It was a fantastic experience that really changed my life. It really gave me a deep understanding of animals, and it inspired within me a desire to protect endangered species and to teach people about animals. During that time, I worked a lot with National Geographic and Discovery Channel. The tiger to your left is a tiger that took me about 2 years to get to know. He wasn't very nice to me in the beginning. Tigers are not tamed, they're very dangerous. He weighs about 450 pounds. And the lion is Nika. That was a lion that I raised as a young cub. I was really fortunate to be able to work with National Geographic, Discovery Channel, also Jack Hanna. We did a lot of photography, photo shoots and filmings, and that really inspired me to eventually become a photographer. This man is a real icon. His name is Michael Nichols, or Nick Nichols. He's a National geographic photographer, and we did a session with him. He photographed some of our tigers for the front of his book. I really realized that someday I also wanted to be behind the lens. You can visit michaelnicknichols.com to learn more about him. In 2013, I moved to Ethiopia. I grew up in, or I was living in Oakland, spent most of my time there over the last 12 years. I was very close to the Ethiopian community. I got invited to go to Ethiopia in 2013, and I ended up staying there. This is the Simeon Mountains in the north part of the country, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I went to work in the travel business and also as a photographer for a travel company that was just starting off, and also to work with a wildlife conservationist. A few quick things about Africa, since some of you have been there, you know much of this. The population is about 1.360 billion. It's the second largest continent with 54 countries, 11,724 square miles. You can see Uganda right here, and here's Ethiopia to the northeast. I like to show this map because a lot of people don't really know how big the continent really is, but look how many countries fit inside of Africa. The US, China, India, Eastern Europe, Germany, France. That's one of the things we don't learn in school. We don't learn how big the actual continent is. With the exception of Ethiopia, all countries were colonized, and independence has only really been achieved within the last 60 years. And here's a map of, interesting map showing all the different countries. You see how much the British and also the French particularly colonized the continent, and all the countries except Ethiopia were colonized. Uganda was a little bit different than being colonized. It was a protectorate, and they were able to really maintain their self-governance, and they had their own local rulers, and the British still allowed them to keep their system of the kabakas, or the kings in Uganda. Many of you know this already since you're well-traveled, but Africa is not just desert, jungle, huts, lions, and poverty. I get that a lot, especially when I did live presentations before COVID. People would think that all my photos, that was all of Africa. It was all bush and it was all desert. And unfortunately, many of us have the idea that there's no infrastructure. We have lots of infrastructure. Africa is very modernized. It's very diverse. We do have strong entrepreneurial leaders, industry, technology, beautiful hotels. We have the Baha'i temple. We have a lot of cultural diversity as well as beautiful architecture. We have buildings, roads. We have infrastructure and highways. Here's a beautiful photo of Kigali, Rwanda, where I also used to live. There's a lot of industry now. Volkswagen launched a car assembly plant in 2018. As I was mentioning, my journey began right here in Ethiopia, and this is a Great Rift Valley. Rift Valley is a crack or a fracture in the Earth's surface that was caused 35 million years ago, and it really created diverse landscapes and forested mountains, semi-active volcanoes, gorges, dramatic escarpments, desert, hot springs. You see the Great Rift Valley here. And it's also home to the Nile. And this is, the Nile begins right here and it travels all the way up to Sudan. It meets up with the White Nile from Uganda, right at Khartoum. And then it goes all the way to Egypt and spills out into the Mediterranean. This is Mount Fentali. It's a dormant stratovolcano in the northeast section. Elevation is really high. It's about 6,650 feet. One of my favorite places to stay is Awash Falls Lodge. I did a lot of my work there, and this is the view from the eating area. The Great Rift Valley, as I mentioned, has a lot of hot springs, and this is my friend's lodge, Doho Lodge, and it's in a far region of eastern Ethiopia. And there's also hippos in these lakes. And he has this beautiful hot springs lodge. It's very relaxing. And this is the area of the Afar ethnic people. And this is Eastern Ethiopia. And the Afar are nomadic pastoralists. They have a strong warrior culture. Another place I spent a lot of time was the 11 rock-hewn monolithic Orthodox churches here in Lalibela, which is in North Ethiopia. And they actually carved this by hand. I know Martin and Gail and Patricia, I believe you've been to Ethiopia, but they carved, this goes about 85 feet down, and they carved it by hand. And this is King Lalibela of the Zagwe dynasty in the 12th century. Inside of the monasteries, they've carved all the way inside in this area here. I don't know how they did it, again, all by hand, and they painted these beautiful frescoes. This is one of the monks here. The Orthodox Christian religion is very strong in Ethiopia, and it's embedded into their culture and also into their language. Do you guys like coffee? I'm drinking Ugandan coffee right now, just so you know. But Ethiopia is the motherland of the Arabica coffee, and they have this really beautiful coffee ceremony, which I really miss. I get to be a part of it sometimes here in Uganda, but every day we would have a coffee ceremony. Also, I love photographing their beautiful textiles, and they have hand loom weavers, and they create these beautiful dresses and shirts. And also Ethiopia is a home to the Chalada mountain monkeys. This is the Simeon Mountains. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the Chalada monkeys are only found in northern Ethiopia. The UNESCO World Heritage Site is also the home to Ras Dejin at 14,930 feet. They call it the roof of Africa. After living in Ethiopia, I moved to Rwanda to also photograph and work in the travel business. There's 3 national parks in Rwanda. I lived here in Kigali, which is the capital city. There's the Volcanoes Park, and that's where Diane Fossey did her work, Gorillas in the Mist. There's also Akagera and also Inyungwe right here. Rwanda is home to Lake Kivu, which lies right on the Albertine Rift Valley, and it's the 8th largest lake in Africa. And the views here are absolutely spectacular. On the other side here is the Congo. Akagera National Park is one of my favorite places to visit when I'm in Rwanda. And it's home to lots of impalas, and they can leap about 33 feet across and jump 10 feet vertically. Only the males have horns. They have to be able to run really fast because they can be caught by lions and also leopards. You can see the beautiful horns here. And this is a female with no horns. They can be sometimes confused when you first look at them with the eland. This is an eland. And this is a topi antelope, which looks completely different. Their coloration is darker, and also you can see their shorter horns. These are the fastest antelopes. They can run about 50 miles per hour. Inyungwe National Park in southwest Rwanda is the largest montane rainforest, and also home to a lot of the chimpanzees. The government in Rwanda does a great job of really integrating the community into the tourism value chain, so they also benefit from it. And it's a great place to go chimpanzee trekking. This is a young chimpanzee here. You can see he has a pink face. He'll get a darker face as he gets older. Now I'd like to welcome all of you to Uganda. After living in Rwanda, I moved to the Pearl of Africa. And Winston Churchill called Uganda the Pearl of Africa because of its great beauty. And in Uganda is Lake Victoria. It's also called Lake Nalubale, and it's the source of the Albertine Nile. Right here at Jinja, it travels, right here at Jinja, it travels all the way to Murchison Falls National Park. It goes down the waterfall into Lake Albert, the Albertine Nile, and that's where it travels all the way up north to meet with the Blue Nile in Ethiopia. There are 10 national parks, which we're going to visit a few of them. We do have the big 5. I'm very proud to say that. We have the lion. We also have the mighty leopard. We have the largest mammal, the elephant, at 14,000 pounds, 13 feet tall. This is the first elephant photo that I ever took in Uganda about 6 years ago now. We have the Cape buffalo. You can see these males are very powerful. They can weigh up to 1,900 pounds. We also do have the rhinoceros, but they're only at Ziwa Rhino Sanctuary right now. They were poached into extinction and they're not found in the wild anymore. And right about in the 1980s, they weren't seen in Uganda anymore, but the Ziwa Sanctuary has about 30. They have a great breeding program. They've worked a lot with the Disney Animal Park, and eventually they would like to release them into the wild. These are the white rhinos. We're also very well known for our mountain gorillas. Half of the world's mountain gorillas are found in Uganda. There's about 1,063 in Uganda, and the rest are in Rwanda and also the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This is a female. I was photographing her while she was nursing her baby in Bwindi impenetrable forest in the southwest. There are 2 species of gorillas, and each species has 2 subspecies. So we have the eastern gorilla species, and the 2 subspecies are the Growers gorilla, which is the largest primate in the world, the mountain gorilla. Then the western gorilla species has the western lowland gorilla, and then the cross river gorilla, which is the most endangered. Gestation period is 8 months, just like with humans, and that's why conservation can be difficult, because a female will not go into heat or estrus until she is done nursing her youngsters, and they nurse for 3 years. Usually they'll have an average of 2 babies. This is a youngster only a few days old that was right above the lodge where I was staying while we were taking our guest chimpanzee gorilla trekking. It's been a real success story with the mountain gorilla. Tourism has really contributed to their protection and providing funds for their conservation, and really creating a real reason and value to protect them. They have gone from critically endangered to endangered now. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we've actually have had a few births within the last couple years. This is a silverback. And while I was taking our guests through Bwindi, I was lucky enough to be able to snap this photo. And they call them silverbacks because when they're about 13 years of age, they develop a silvery fur on their back. One of the first places that I went to photograph 6 years ago was Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary on Lake Nalubale. I stayed on the island for about a month and had a lot of opportunities to photograph them. This is Sarah, who is a youngster at the time. She was only about 3. This is Tumbo. He looks older, but he's actually a male about 30 years old. And then this is Medina. Ngamba Island was established in 1998 by Dr. Jane Goodall and a group of Ugandan trustees. This is Pasa, Coco, and Medina. There's 50 chimpanzees. They have all been rescued from the illegal wildlife and bush trade, and they live on 95 acres of beautiful forest habitat. And they get excellent veterinary care. This is the executive director, Dr. Joshua Rukundo. You can visit ngamaisland.org to learn more about them. They get checked regularly. Females are on birth control, and it's important that they don't breed because of the fact that there's 95 acres. That's fine for supporting 50 chimpanzees, but not if they keep breeding. And although they're highly endangered, they cannot release them into the wild because chimpanzees are very dangerous animals and they're very territorial. And if they release them into the wild and they encountered another community, then that community would fight with them and kill them. There's a lot of chimpanzee politics, just like humans. We share 98.7% of our DNA with chimpanzees. There's 342 species of mammals in Uganda. This is a eland, which is the largest antelope. There's a common eland, which is this animal here, and then the greater eland, which is really the largest of the antelopes. We have 13 primate species. I love photographing primates. They're so much like us. And 10,060 species of birds. This is the pied kingfisher. For all of you photographers out there, I love photographing birds, and what I usually do is I use a 100 to 400 or a 200 to 600 millimeter lens, a very long lens. I was on a boat when I photographed this bird. He was probably about 80 feet up in the air, so I had to really zoom in. I use a shutter speed of 1/4000th of a second in order to capture the wings. If you don't use 1/4000th of a second, you would get some blur here, which luckily I wasn't able to get. But I also took about 100 photos of him and found one that worked. This is a beautiful fishing eagle, African fishing eagle. We're going to visit Murchison Falls National Park, which is located right here. And it's Uganda's largest and first national park, established in 1952. This is the top of Murchison Falls. And I used a very slow shutter speed here, probably about 1 second, so you get that creamy look. So longer exposure. This is a really powerful waterfall, and the Albertine Nile, Murchison Falls, travels at 11,000 cubic feet per second. It goes through this gorge here, which is about 30 feet wide, and it explodes down about 150 feet down into the Albertine Nile. And here in the Albertine Nile, we have lots of hippos. Hippos, that's actually why we don't river raft in this area here. You don't want to river raft where there's crocodiles and hippos. Hippos are the third largest land mammal. They can weigh up to 8,000 pounds. Here is an adult, and behind him is a youngster. The largest land mammals are the elephant, the rhino, the hippo, the gaur bison found in Asia, and also the giraffe. Hippos are actually closely related to cetaceans, dolphins or whales. At birth, giraffes weigh 150 pounds and are about 6 feet tall. They have a long gestation period, which is about 15 months. Here are some young giraffes here. Giraffes are the fifth largest land animal, and they can get up to 4,700 pounds and 20 feet tall. What's interesting about the giraffes is these gentle giants have a 25-pound heart. It's about the size of a basketball. And there's a series of complex elastic veins and valves in their neck, so that when they bend down to drink water, the valves closes, so they don't have a brain hemorrhage. And when they lift their head up, then the valves open again. Unfortunately, there's been a 40% drop in the population of giraffes just in the last 50 years. And now they are vulnerable to extinction. And it's the same causes: habitat destruction, poaching, and also climate change. Unfortunately, on Facebook, I see a lot of photos of people that like to come to Africa and hunt giraffes and take selfies with them. I don't understand that. I think it's pretty disgusting, but it's common. And before I go on, does anyone have any quick questions? You can just unmute yourself if you do.
Are the gorillas subject to COVID? Are they being exposed to COVID, or the mountain gorillas?
Yes, we share about 98% of our DNA with the gorillas. They are susceptible to most of our diseases, including COVID. So there's a big safety protocol. Uganda shut down. I was in the US last year visiting, giving presentations when the borders were completely shut. And I was in the US for about 10 months waiting for the borders to open again so I can come back home. And gradually, tourism has opened up. There's a lot of safety protocol in terms of course, wearing a mask, keeping a distance, limiting how many guests do come to the chimpanzee and actually the gorilla trekking areas, but they can get COVID, absolutely.
Okay. But they're being protected. That's the main thing.
Yes, they are. The Uganda Wildlife Authority and the government, they're very protective over the gorillas, and they have really made sure that there's been safety protocols. And during the start of COVID, there was no gorilla or chimpanzee trekking at all.
Okay.
This is an Abyssinian hornbill, one of my favorite birds. And when I was working at Six Flags in Vallejo, this is one of the birds that I took care of. So every time I see them, it brings back memories of Max, who I spent a lot of time with at Six Flags. The males have a big orange pouch here. They're able to call out to females, and you can see the females don't have as much coloration. They have a blue pouch. They like to eat beetles that are rolling around in dung beetles. I also worked around a lot of Anubis baboons when I was at Six Flags, so it's fantastic to see them in the wild. This is a mother, she's nursing here, and she's being groomed. Grooming is a very important part of primate society. It really helps to establish bonds, and it builds community with each other, and it helps to relieve stress. This is one of the baboons that I photographed around Queen Elizabeth National Park, and you can see how long those canines are. Aside from eating roots and shrubs and leaves, they also hunt. They can hunt small antelopes. And it's a male-dominated troop, and the males can be very aggressive. You're going to see a lot of lions, since that's my background, and I really love photographing, especially the females, since that's the females what I worked with at Six Flags. This is a mother and child. This baby's only a few days old. He was very unsteady on his feet, and mom was watching him very closely. These are his other, they're possibly siblings. It's hard to tell because there were other females there, and they're all watching him. They're different ages here. These two are about the same age, and this is a older female. Lion gestation is right about 110 days. They're very dependent on their mom while they're growing up. This is a close-up. And you can see he has really small teeth, milk teeth, because he's only about probably 6 months of age. My favorite place on earth really is Karamoja. This is the northeast section of Uganda. The views and the mountains here are truly stunning. This is Pian Upe, and this is the largest wildlife reserve in the country. And you can see the views are absolutely spectacular. For those photographers out there, I use wide angle lenses, 16 to 35. I also use a lot of filters. So here I had a polarizer filter, since there was a lot of bright sun, and I was able to get the blue saturation on the sky from the polarizer. Kidepo National Park, CNN Travel voted this national park as one of the best safari destinations in Africa, and I totally agree with them. Kidepo is right at the very far northeastern pocket at the border of Sudan. This is the land of the Karamojong. The Karamojong actually migrated from Ethiopia in the 1600s from the Omo Valley area. We like to take our guests to the Nakapirimoru Manyata village in Kotido. You can see the traditional dance and their beautiful beaded wear here. We also go to the Lolokul Cultural Center, which is right next to Kidepo Valley. And what I really love about these centers is that they're not commercial. There's actually very few people there. And any money that you donate to them goes back to, goes to actually their healthcare. In Kidepo, we have 77 different mammals, 450 bird species, and lots of Cape buffalo. And that's one of the reasons Kidepo is famous, because of the hundreds of Cape buffaloes that you're going to see in their herds. And here's a very large male. Cape buffaloes are really one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous animal on the African plain. They're huge, they're aggressive, and especially when you see males by themselves, those are males that have been rejected from the herd. And those are the ones that are really aggressive. Their horn here, this is called a boss. It's a solid piece of bone here, and they can really seriously injure or kill lions when lions are hunting them. They can really gouge their side. I've seen some horrible injuries with footage of lions hunting. Sometimes I will get out of the vehicle at a safe distance, social distancing from buffaloes, of course. because when they're in a herd, they're not quite as dangerous. If that was a lone buffalo, I'd never get out of the vehicle. We have beautiful elephants here in Chidepo. As you can see, this youngster here is spraying dust like they like to do. You could see she's young. She has very small tusks here. Tusks are actually elongated incisors. They start right at the base of the skull. A tusk can weigh anywhere between 40 to 170 pounds. The elephant trunk is a really complex apparatus, and it's about 40,000 muscles inside the trunk, and it's divided into 150,000 units. They're very protective. Elephants live in herds or families, in communities. It's all females. Males only enter the herd generally when they're in ready to breed, basically, when they're in that period of what they call must, and their testosterone levels really high, and then they'll go to breed, and then as soon as they breed, they leave. This female here is very protective. While I was photographing her, she would not take her eyes off us for a single second. And she looked forward, she would put her ears out, and she was protecting the family because they were grazing. So while they had their back turned, she was watching us. You could see the little baby here with this little trunk. Elephant trunks are powerful. They can lift up to 600 pounds, and they use the trunk in combination with their tusks to strip bark from trees so they can eat. Now, a lion's jaws, they can exert 690 pounds of force per square inch. When I was in Chidepo, right in front of us, this female lion hunted and killed a duker antelope. But the same jaws can gently carry their young cubs, and just like a house cat, if you pick up a house cat by the nape of their neck, then it helps them to just completely relax. And she crossed out of the road right in front of us in order to find a safer location for her cub. These lion cubs are approximately 6 months of age. You can see they have their milk teeth. They'll get their full teeth when they're about a year old. I know the teeth very well because I've been bitten by these teeth many times. And even though they're small, they hurt, and they can definitely do a lot of damage. Here are the three youngsters here. They were watching their mom because she just killed a zebra, and she was calling out for them. This is a male subadult. He's about 2 years of age. Lions do have spots. The spots help provide camouflage, and the spots gradually fade as they get older, but you can still see spots on adult lions. You can see he has a partial mane here since he's a youngster, and eventually he will develop a full mane when he's about 5 years of age. Here's a male posing for me. You can see his battle scars. Lions fight with each other all the time. They're also very protective over their pride. Unfortunately, lions, their population has dropped. In 1965, there was 450,000 lions on average, and now in 2021, there's less than 20,000. Lions have disappeared from 80% of their African range. It took years before I was able to photograph a leopard. So I was honored to be able to see this female here. Females weigh about 80 to 100 pounds. Male leopards can weigh up to about 200 pounds. I used a really long telephoto lens because she was about 200, probably 200 feet away, all the way up in the tree here. And she was surveying her territory. Leopards are the most powerful cat, the strongest pound for pound, and they can carry twice their body weight up a tree. This is the male leopard. Also, leopards are part of the Baganda totem. They're called Ngo. You can see he has blood on his chin here. We spotted this leopard far away on top of a rock. So we went towards the rock and he disappeared. We turned the corner and he was right here about 20 feet away, a lot closer than I had expected. As you see, he has a big stomach here because he just gorged himself. He had made a kill. I was actually surprised. He came right towards me. And I was wondering, I wonder if I should stop photographing and close the window, because he was slowly stalking me. And eventually he got pretty close. You could see these eyes. That is an intense look of a predator. And the ranger who was with us, he said, "Mayanja, close the window." which I didn't, of course, because I was focused on getting the photo. But luckily he went down. He didn't jump into our vehicle or come at us. He went down into the grasses, and I was able to capture this photo of him. And at this point, he was only about 8 feet away. I didn't realize that until I took that photo and saw how close he was. He had just killed the Jackson's hartebeest, which can be up to about 400 pounds. We found the carcass a couple months later. Jackson's hartebeest can run really fast, up to about 48 miles an hour, and they like to stand on termite mounds in order to survey their territory and watch out for predators while the rest of the herd grazes. There's a lot of zebras in Chidepo. Interesting thing about the zebra stripes help to keep them cool. Also, it provides camouflage. When you see zebras in a herd, it can be difficult for a lion to pick out a zebra when they see all this striping pattern here. There's also another theory that scientists are still studying, that biting flies don't like to land on the stripes. I'm going to paint myself with stripes and see if that works. We're going to visit Queen Elizabeth National Park here. And you can see it's right here in the southwest. And this was my first visit 6 years ago. And I was just enthralled by the stunning landscapes and the salt lakes and the beautiful wildlife here. Here's Makulu Chiboneka with some of our travel guests in the beautiful dining area. Philip took us to the Explosion Crater Lakes route, and we saw these beautiful views. This is a caldera formed by a collapsed volcano. There's 600 bird species. It's really a bird's paradise. This is a red bishop weaver. This is also one of the first primate photos I took 6 years ago. This is a colobus monkey, or Renzori monkey, they also call them. Interesting thing about the colobus monkeys is that they only have 4 fingers. They don't have thumbs. The only other primate that has only 4 fingers is a spider monkey, but it helps them move very quickly through the tops of trees. There's also the red colobus monkeys, and chimpanzees are known to hunt colobus monkeys, the red colobus monkeys, in the trees, and they have a whole elaborate system of stalking and hunting these primates. There's also 95 mammal species, and this is the male waterbuck. And the Ugandan kobe, which is one of the country's national symbols, along with crown crane. There's a lot of beautiful antelopes. This is the oribi, one of the smallest. They have these cute little horns. And in the Kazinga Channel, there's lots of wildlife. It's really an oasis. Here are some of the hippos here. As I mentioned, hippos are closely related to cetaceans, whales, dolphins. They raise their young in the wild, in the water. They spend most of their time in the water. As you can see, this youngster here is probably a couple months of age. This is one of my digital painting renditions of a male hippo. You can see they're covered with scars because they fight with each other all the time. They're very social, actually. They live in pods, but they're also highly aggressive. And we have the Nile crocodile. If you guys have ever been to Steinhardt Aquarium, Academy of Sciences, that's one of the first places that I worked in San Francisco back in the day. And one of the jobs I had was feeding them alligators. Philip, you guys have a lot of alligators in Florida. These are crocodiles. They're different because they have a slender snout and they have this tooth which protrudes above their upper lip here. They haven't changed in 250 million years. When the meteor hit the Yucatan Valley and caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, the crocodiles survived. This is one of the elephants that I photographed right outside of Queen Elizabeth National Park. Interesting thing with elephants is that they do produce a very low frequency sound in their larynx, between 1 to 20 hertz. It's very low, and it's how they communicate with each other. And a lot of times you'll see the elephants putting their trunk down, kind of curving it and putting it down on the ground. It's how they communicate with each other over long distances. Their gestation period is long. It's about 18 to 22 months. Generally, a female will only have 1 calf. Luckily, it'd be difficult to have 2 because they weigh 225 pounds. you can see that symbiotic relationship with birds. They love to eat the insects on the elephants. And I'm going to end with my favorite place to just relax, because we have a lot of beautiful landscapes, and Lake Nalubale, Lake Victoria is home to archipelago of 84 islands. It's called Sese. This is literally the view right out of my hotel. Just the most beautiful skies in Africa. That's one of the reasons I grew up in San Francisco, and I still saw beautiful skies when it wasn't foggy. And when I moved to Africa, I just realized that the skies and the sunsets and sunrises are really stunning. This is at Victoria Forest Resort, Bugala Island in the Kalangala district. And they also have beautiful flowers. I love macro photography, by the way. This is the 90 millimeter lens that I use for macro. And this is a spur-winged lapwing. Herodotus, the Greek historian, the father of history, actually wrote about the spur-winged lapwing. And he said they had a symbiotic relationship with the crocodiles because they would go inside their mouths and eat and clean their teeth. And of course, the egret. What I'll do now, you guys can unmute yourself, and I'm going to scroll through my photo gallery, and you can ask any questions that you might have.
That's great.
Philip, is there anything you wanted to add about the Pearl of Africa, travel and your wildlife observations?
Wanna add
Um,
anything?
Somebody asked about COVID and the gorillas. For quite a while now, in fact, I think since the gorillas were habituated in Uganda, they have always kept visitors about 8 meters away from the gorillas, just in case one of the guests was sick. The only danger to the gorillas is for them, they don't know what social distancing is, and they also move outside the protected areas and go into communities where they can pick up COVID much easier than from visitors. So I think a lot of work still needs to be done in making sure that these the gorillas move back into the protected area as soon as they get out.
Would they vaccinate them?
No, they don't vaccinate them. They have not vaccinated them. And I don't know if, I think it is the San Diego Zoo that was doing something about vaccinating gorillas a couple of months ago. But the ones in Rwanda, Uganda, DRC, they're not vaccinated.
Great pictures.
Yeah.
I have a question. You identified some of the gorillas by name. How distinctive are their facial features? And would you be able to pick out a large number of them just by their faces?
What's very interesting at Mamba Island, and it was actually the chimpanzees that I was able to identify.
Right.
After being there for a month, I could identify many of them, but definitely not all of them. Now, there are incredible caregivers there that have spent years with the chimpanzees. And literally, when they would be out in their feeding area, there would be 20 of them, and they could actually pick out each one, even if they had their back turned. For me, I can definitely pick out certain facial features, and the ones that I showed you those are my favorite ones that I photographed. And by photographing them, I really got to know which ones they were.
What?
Like Eddie has a very distinctive face and very long face with very bright eyes. So I learned to tell which one he was, but some of the other ones, it's very difficult for me to identify them, but the caregivers absolutely can.
I wanted the one bread
Like-
frozen, as you know, because I put the other one in the refrigerator.
So
Right.
with these kids here, it was easy because Sarah was young. She had a very pink face. Tumbo still has a pink face, even though he's an adult, but he was very distinctive because of his silvery hair. And then Coco here has a little bit of a smaller face.
You made me want to go back again.
You absolutely should. Please
It's a
visit us.
phenomenal continent. It's
Thank
just,
you.
it's incredible.
Well,
Even
You really
Chris-
brought us there. It's just amazing, the photographs. It just, you took us right to your beloved
Yes.
country.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words.
question. Amongst all of the different wildlife you have in Uganda, which animals have had sort of conservation success versus which have gone down, or do you believe in general it's still on a downward trend?
Throughout the continent, and unfortunately throughout the world, it is on a downward trend. And as I mentioned, of course, when it comes to the mountain grills, that has been a huge success. Philip, actually, since you're directly involved in conservation, if you could explain some of your conservation efforts. Queen.
Yeah. So when it comes to the large mammals and the cats, Uganda at one time or Queen Elizabeth National Park had the largest biomass in the entire world, and it was mainly made up of buffalo, hippo, and elephant. The numbers went down drastically in 1985 when there was a change of government in Uganda, and there was no Uganda wildlife rangers to protect the animals. But since then, there's been quite a bit of conservation efforts from local groups as well as international groups, like the Auckland Zoo is in Uganda, National Geographic and other groups. Like right now, Queen Elizabeth National Park has seen an increase of elephants. Elephants have really rebounded. There are so many young elephants in the park. The chimpanzees are doing very well in Uganda. Like Chivale National Park has close to 2,000 chimpanzees. And then the gorillas have also gone up. The animals that have taken a huge hit, in fact, about 4 hours ago, I got information that 5 lions have been poisoned in the Ishasha sector of Queen Elizabeth National Park. So the lion population in Uganda and throughout Africa is continuing to go down because of human wildlife conflicts. A lot of human populations around the national parks, the protected areas, is growing, and a lot of farmers, cattle herders, goat keepers, they are encroaching on park land. And a lion is, when a lion sees a cow, it's so easy, it is so tempting, and cows do not protect themselves, goats don't protect themselves like buffalo or other large antelopes.
Wow.
So the cats have gone down.
I'm sorry to hear that, Philip. So it was 5 lions that were poisoned within the last few days?
Yeah, about 8. It was around 8 p.m. Uganda time that I got word from Dr. Seifert. He's he's a vet, the wild animal vet.
Boy.
Yeah.
Oh, really sad. I'll have to ask Alex about that. That's very sad.
Yeah.
Are there a lot
sorry.
of government-sponsored programs towards education of the locals to sort of help them understand how the wildlife is beneficial for them? Are those things happening, or are political sort of changes affecting those as well?
The government has an agency called Uganda Wildlife Authority. They're the caretakers and of wild animals in Uganda. They're trying to to educate and interact with the communities. However, their efforts are not up to par like in Botswana or in Tanzania and other countries. And what has been missing in Uganda is when a lion, there hasn't been any compensation of lost animals or life to the to the local communities. So the local communities don't find value in wildlife as they should. So that's the main problem we have.
Yeah.
Thank you for your very candid answer.
Yeah. Have you had any interchange with the Sheldrake reserve there in Kenya, where they rescue the animals, elephants and hippos?
Yeah. So Uganda has not had any communication or any contact with Sheldrake, and Uganda does not have any sanctuary like you find in like Sheldrake in Kenya, or the ones in Botswana or South Africa. There's like in Queen Elizabeth National Park or Murchison National Park, there's no sanctuary, there's no hospital, there's no animal hospital that will take care of injured animals. They just let them die. They have rescued, I think in the last 5 years, they've rescued, I think, 2 elephant babies, and they took them to the Entebbe Zoo. But the zoo is not capable of handling more than a couple of elephants because they get too big and they need huge space. So those are, I think, the opportunities that are out there for for conservation of wildlife in Uganda.
Thank you, Philip.
You mentioned climate change and the effect. Are you seeing any increase in your temperatures or changes in your rainfall, or other changes that we're kind of experiencing here in the US?
I've actually seen a lot of changes just where I live in Kampala. Usually right now, it's starting to get hot. It was a few years ago. Now it's cold here and it's constantly raining. Like it's raining right now, actually. Also in the Tolodo region in the east, I was doing some filming there, and they have these torrential rains and landslides, and those people have really suffered. So Uganda has seen a lot of climate change, and it's really interesting because I've gone to conferences where they have no idea how the US denies climate change, because people are seeing really drastic changes in the weather. In Karamoja in the northeast where I go, I was there last summer, and usually it's known as one of the hottest areas. Every time I talk about going to Karamoja, people say, wow, it's really hot there. The Kalamajo, the people were wearing jackets. It was actually cold and raining. So there has been some changes.
Oh yeah.
How about you notice that in Queen?
In Queen Elizabeth National Park, there were very distinct wet and dry seasons in the area. There were 2 wet seasons and 2 dry seasons. But right now, it rains throughout the year, and and when it's hot, it's pretty hot. In Murchison Falls National Park, the river now has flooded, I think for the last 6 to 8 months. There's in fact a lodge that has closed because there's just too much water from the lodge. So climate change has affected Uganda quite a bit. In fact, in Kabale, I think it was last November or so, it snowed in Kabale.
Oh my goodness.
And this is, like maybe 50 miles south of the equator, and it was snowing. So it's gotten really cold, lots of rain, and the seasons are no longer as distinct as before. And farmers who depended on rain, because there's no irrigation in Uganda, they knew when to plant their crops. But now they have no idea when it's going to rain, when it's going to stop raining. So farmers have been affected as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so when the weather patterns have changed, have you also seen changes in migration patterns within your countries, in your areas of the animals?
Yeah, interesting. So Uganda doesn't have migration like you see in Kenya and Tanzania.
Okay.
Although before the human populations closed off these migration corridors, like between Queen Elizabeth National Park and Murchison Falls National Park, we used to have elephants that would migrate from Queen Elizabeth National Park to Murchison Falls National Park, passing through Sebenliki, and because there was no human habitats, no human communities in between. So right now, I think what we have is cross-border migration from DRC to Uganda, and elephants do that, some lions do that, but we don't have that kind of migration that you see in Kenya or Tanzania. What I noticed though at the camp in Queen is during the rainy season we get tons of elephants, and they linger around the camp for maybe 6 weeks or so while it's wet. But I don't see any other kind of significant migration.
Thank you.
With the mountain gorillas, there are mountain gorillas from Imgahinga National Park, and they do travel between Rwanda and also the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but I don't know if climate change has affected that.
They are still migrating between the three countries, and because that area has been, is wet pretty much throughout the year. They don't, the heavy rains haven't changed much of the migration between them.
Termites, yeah.
This is the tallest termite mound I have ever seen.
Yeah. My gosh.
Tell them what we do.
Is it possible to get a recording of this presentation? The Zoom recording?
Sophia, are you on that?
Yep. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Well, Philip and Chris, thank you so much. We've taken up your time. We've learned so much, and I think we've all appreciated your effort. And thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions, please email me. And you can also visit my websites, which I'm sure you've seen on.
We will do that. Thank you, Chris. You can go to bed and go to sleep now.
I had too much coffee. I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep. It's time to drink some wine now.
Oh, that's good.
I like the style. Thank
Thank you, sir. We so
right.
appreciate
Mm.
the time.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Mr.
Thanks.
Chris.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice week.
Okay.